Hello. If this is your first time here, I'm Grace. And if you've been here before, welcome back. I wanted to acknowledge that I have not posted a video for the past several weeks. As many of you know from my recent videos, I discovered my narcissist ex-partner, Neil, dead in his apartment back in August. There has been an enormous amount of things to take care of, and it has been exhausting. The combination of grief and all of the tasks that needed to get done were overwhelming. What I haven't shared yet is what came after the discovery. The overwhelming job of clearing out his apartment and 2 garages full of belongings. That job is now finally finished, and I can get back to my life and this channel. But the process revealed so much about the hidden reality of who Neil really was behind his carefully crafted mask. What I found was both shocking and, in retrospect, completely predictable. Today, I want to share what I discovered because it perfectly illustrates the gap between who narcissists pretend to be and who they actually are when no one is watching. Neil's apartment and 2 storage garages were absolutely stuffed with belongings. We're talking 3 separate kitchen cabinets just full to the brim of spices alone. And it's no exaggeration when I say that he had 5 and 6 bottles of one particular spice. Some had expired, but many had never even been opened. His pantry was overflowing with specialty oils, vinegars, and gourmet ingredients, most of which he had never even used. His full-size wine cooler was full of beautiful wines. The garages were packed, floor to ceiling, with nice things, expensive cookware still in boxes, furniture, electronics, decorative items, camping gear, fishing gear, golf clubs, tools, everything you can imagine just stuffed into these garages. These weren't junk or cheap items that you could just throw away. They were quality possessions that required careful sorting before removing. For someone who lived alone, the sheer volume of stuff was staggering. It was like he had enough possessions for 3 or 4 households, all crammed into spaces where one person lived. This level of accumulation isn't just about being materialistic. It connects directly to narcissistic behavior patterns. When narcissists cannot control the people in their lives, they often try to control their physical environment instead. Hoarding becomes a way to fill that internal void, to surround themselves with tangible proof of their importance and success. Neil always presented himself as sophisticated, knowledgeable about wine and gourmet cooking. Having all these specialty ingredients and expensive cookware supported that image, even if most of it went unused. It was about the appearance of being cultured and accomplished, and not about actually using these things. There's also something deeper here about narcissists' inability to let go of anything, including people. Just as Neil hoarded objects, he hoarded connections, keeping practical ties to me even after our relationship had ended. The same psychology that made him keep dozens of bottles of the same spice made him unable to fully release his hold on me as well. What struck me most was the stark contrast between the Neil that the world saw and the reality of how he actually lived. In public, he was this put-together man who could talk eloquently about wine and food pairings and create beautiful meals. But behind closed doors, he was drowning in chaos. The man who criticized my organizational skills, who raged on me about my Amazon business taking up space in our home, was living in a state of overwhelming disorder that he had hidden from everyone. This is classic narcissistic behavior. They become masters at compartmentalizing their lives. They can present a polished facade to the world while their private reality is falling apart. The energy that they put into maintaining that false persona is enormous, which helps explain why they're often so volatile and exhausting in their personal relationships. One of the most disturbing discoveries was finding many of my belongings mixed in with his possessions. Things I didn't even realize he had taken or kept. Kitchen items we had shared, personal mementos, even some clothing items that I thought I had misplaced. This is actually a very common narcissistic behavior. They keep pieces of their former partners like trophies. Even after the discard phase, they hold on to physical reminders of their conquests. It's a way of maintaining psychological ownership over people that they've discarded. Finding my belongings mixed in with his hoard felt violating in a way that I hadn't expected. It was like discovering that even after I thought I had escaped his influence, he was still keeping pieces of me captive in his chaotic world. As I sorted through his belongings, a darker picture began to emerge. I found clear evidence of significant substance abuse that went far beyond the drinking that I had witnessed during our relationship. There were indicators of depression so severe that it painted a picture of someone living in genuine psychological torment. This isn't uncommon with narcissists. The grandiose facade they maintain requires enormous energy, and many turn to substances to cope with that internal emptiness and shame that they feel. When their supply runs low, when they don't have people to manipulate and control, as Neil did in his final days, that underlining depression and self-hatred often becomes unbearable. What's tragic is that this suffering doesn't make them more empathetic or drive them to seek genuine help. No. Instead, it often makes them more destructive towards others. The pain they feel becomes something they project onto their partners, making us responsible for fixing or managing their internal chaos. I found myself feeling a complicated mix of emotions. Sadness for the torment he must have lived with, but also validation that the darkness I sensed in him was real. The rage, the cruelty, the emotional destruction he inflicted, they were manifestations of this internal hell he was living in. Spending weeks sorting through Neil's accumulated chaos felt like a perfect metaphor for what it's like to be in a relationship with a narcissist. Just as I had to clean up the emotional wreckage he left in my life, here, now, I was literally cleaning up the physical wreckage he left behind. The overwhelming nature of the job, not knowing where to start, feeling burdened under the sheer volume of dysfunction, that's exactly what it feels like when you're trying to heal from narcissistic abuse. You look around at the damage to your self-esteem, your relationships, your sense of reality, and wonder how you'll ever sort through it all. But there's also something profound in the fact that I was the one doing this work. Neil, who had spent years telling me I was disorganized and I didn't have the capacity to handle things, and he just made me feel like I was a mess. And the person he tried so hard to diminish was the one who showed up to bring order to his chaos. This experience taught me several important things about narcissists. The mask always slips eventually. Neil spent so much energy maintaining his sophisticated image that his private life became unmanageable. Narcissists project their chaos onto others. While criticizing my organizational skills, he was living in far greater disorder than I ever did. They cannot truly let go. The hoarding of objects parallels their inability to release control over people as well. Their suffering does not excuse their behavior. Whatever pain Neil was in doesn't justify the abuse he inflicted on me. Narcissists often self-destruct when they lose control. Without healthy coping mechanisms, they turn to substances and isolation. Clearing out Neil's belongings was, in many ways, my final act of service to him. Even after death, he had created a mess that someone else had to handle. But it was also profoundly healing for me to be the capable, organized person who could manage this overwhelming task. Every box I sorted through, every decision I made about his things was proof that I was not incompetent, disorganized. He had tried to convince me I was, but I was strong enough to handle his chaos, compassionate enough to treat his belongings with respect, and organized enough to complete a job that would have defeated many people. If you're a survivor of narcissistic abuse, what can you take away from this experience? Trust what you sensed. If you felt there was darkness or chaos beneath their polished surface, well, you were probably right. Their criticism of you was projection. The things they attacked you for were often their own biggest struggles. You are more capable than they convinced you that you are. You have strengths they tried to make you forget. Their pain does not excuse their abuse. Understanding their suffering can bring you closure, but it doesn't minimize what they did to you. You can handle more than you think. If I could sort through years of one person's accumulated dysfunction, you can handle whatever healing work lies ahead of you. Discovering the reality of Neil's hidden life was both disturbing and validating. It confirmed that the person I fell in love with was indeed a carefully constructed facade, and the darkness I somehow glimpsed was far more extensive than I realized. But it also showed me how far I had come in my own healing journey. The woman who once questioned her own perspectives and capabilities was able to handle this massive, overwhelming task with grace and competence. That's not the person Neil tried to convince me I was, but that's who I really am. It's who I've always been, underneath his manipulation. If you're struggling with your own healing journey, remember that you are stronger, more capable than your abuser convinced you. The chaos they created in your life is manageable, even if it doesn't feel that way right now. Take it one box at a time, one day at a time, one decision at a time. Don't overwhelm yourself. You'll get there. Thank you for your patience during my absence and for being here as I continue to process and share this complex journey. Your support means everything to me. Remember, you deserve relationships built on truth and genuine care, not elaborate facades hiding dysfunction and chaos.